Happy Hump Day, everybody. It is a Wednesday, and it is time for another interview, storytelling, chat here on Full Out Chats. I am your host, Steve Solberg. We are ready to go into the all-star world today. We will be chatting with Darlene Fanning, founder, owner, coach of ICE All-Stars, one of the most successful all-star programs in the country. Darlene has been in the business for many years, has seen the growth, and has seen, really has been one of the driving forces of what the all-star industry is in today. So we're very excited to hear her story and to talk about how she got into the crazy world of all-stars. But before we can go full out, we need some music. So as every coach says, we're going to do this one more time, and it's time to go full out.
Are you ready? Full Out Chats. Do you know what time it is? S-U-L-L-O-U-T. We got control, we got the right, we got the vision, you lose the sight. We will never stop, right? We got the drop, yeah. What time is it? We're live in 5, 6, 7, 8.
All right, we are live here on Full Out Chats. Let's get Darlene to join us. She should be here any second. We're just looking for, there she is, and here in a quick second.
Hey, I hope I can keep the energy like you just did.
Darlene, how are you?
Good.
Good. Well, thank you so much again for taking a time out of your day here. I know that we'll talk about it here in a bit, just how the COVID-19 situation and how it's affecting gyms, obviously how it's affected everybody's season. We'll talk about that later. But I just want to thank you again. I know you're a very busy person to come here and talk to us about your story.
Yeah. No problem, Steve.
I think the thing is,
you.
No, I appreciate it. I know that, especially in the cheerleading world, I think, people have developed these names and, these reputations. But what's so interesting, I think, is the story. Like, how did you get to where you are today? How did you get started? Where did you come from? And things like that. And I think that's a story that I'm quite sure is going to be interesting from you. And I'm really excited to hear it. So like I ask every guest, just kind of start from the beginning. Like, where did you grow up? Family life. How did you eventually get into cheerleading? And kind of just take us on the journey of your life.
Okay. All right. Well, it started when I was a mom with 5 little kids, and my oldest daughter, Andrea, was a high school cheerleader, and they needed a coach. And they did a cheer that I was like, okay, I can't have my daughter doing this. It was, we're hot, so hot. And when they touch their butt with their hand and get the little noise. So I said, okay, we can't do that. So I applied at Westview High School for the high school cheerleading position as a coach.
Oh, Westview in Indianapolis area.
No, Westview.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, in northern Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
So decided to become a cheerleading coach and started into it then. From there, I took this little tiny high school with, graduating class of, 81 kids, and took them to NCAA high school nationals.
Oh,
and
wow,
that's
okay.
where I realized I love that part of it. Mm-hmm. The game day stuff is great, but I really love the competition side of it.
And I don't want to date you here, Darlene, but could you tell us like around what year this is?
You mean BC or? It was, let's see, Andrea graduated did she graduate in 85? 85 or 86? I don't know, somewhere. So in the late, what? Oh, she graduated in 90. That's what I thought. See, yeah.
Well, when you have 5 kids, it's hard to keep track of everything.
Yeah. It was in the late 80s, the early 90s that I started.
And you have no cheer experience. You never were a cheerleader yourself?
No, I was a cheerleader.
You were?
When
okay.
I was in high school. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I did cheer. But other than that, and even as a cheerleader, though, I cheered at Bethany Christian High School. And even as a cheerleader, I was the one thinking up, okay, let's try this stunt. Let's try this. We had a sponsor back then, not a coach, but a sponsor. And she never came to any practice. So we kind of just did it on our own. So then we'd try all these things, and we did things like, back then you did this jump called a slam, which you did a toe touch and then you went straight down into splits. Why? So we did all of that, and then, like I said, when my daughter was old enough to get into high school cheerleading, that's when I became a coach. And that's when I found out that I was really kind of good at it, because until you do it, you don't even know if you're good at it or not. And part of it is, and I've discovered about myself that I'm a perfectionist. And I didn't know that before I became a coach. But I see every little detail, every little thing that goes on, which I think is part of being a good coach. You have to have that eye for perfectionism. So anyway, started being a high school coach, took them to NCAA Nationals, did that for 4 years. Then All-Star was just starting, because this would have been 25 years ago, well, longer ago than that. It would have been more like 30 years ago. And All-Star was just starting in its infancy. And so there weren't too many All-Star teams around. And so we just started. And when I started, I was working for someone else. I was working for another gym in Northern Indiana, and just was coaching, and then decided at some point to break off and do my own thing. And that's when we developed ICE. And it started with Indiana Cheer Elite, were the initials. But then we really felt like we needed to write. Then we needed to do a different logo, and we needed to come up with something. What does this stand for? Not just Indiana Cheer Elite, but it became I Can Excel. And that's what the initials became. So anyway, went on and became ICE and started. But even when I was a small gym and I had 70, 80 kids in the gym in Elkhart and then in Mishawaka, we ended up third in the world with, 70 kids in the gym. So, which the kids that started with me back then, I would say to them, okay, if you can't do this, someone's going to take your spot. And now they're adults and they understand, and they'll laugh sometimes with me and say, Darlene, who were you getting to replace us? What? There were only 70 kids in the gym. Were some kids with fulls and doubles walking in? And, but that was part of it is, I expect you to be the best, and so that's what I really pushed as a coach. And from there it started. And then that was in Mishawaka. And then I had coached a couple girls, drove from Naperville area to the Indiana gym, Mishawaka gym. And then something happened with ICE, a gym in Naperville, and they kind of were going under and they needed someone to take it over. And so I came in, and that's when I started into and I always said I had competed against them and usually beat them, even though they were a way bigger gym. And I said this to everyone for years, if I had that gym, I could win worlds. And so then I ended up getting the gym, buying them out and taking it over. And from there, we have 5 locations this year, a franchise, and it's just grown.
For people joining us here, I'm with Darlene Fanning, founder, owner of ICE All-Stars, which now, as you've talked about, has 5 locations. You've grown this unbelievable business. But before we get to the nitty-gritty there, kind of talk about the infancy of All-Stars. Like you said, you were one of the first to kind of get into it. It was very different. You were still doing a cheer in it, yelling cheers, stuff like that. Through the comments here, I can see a lot of ICE alums are joining in to hear Darlene's story. Kind of talk about how did All Stars really start, kind of the infancy of it, and because the first location was it Mishawaka for you? Was that first location?
It was Elkhart.
Oh, it was Elkhart. Okay. Okay.
In an industrial park. And then we moved to Mishawaka. I moved into a gymnastics facility. that they still currently are running. Dan Poe had that gymnastics, and it was called Gymnastics Michiana.
Hmm.
And we rented space from him. And then we started growing, and we did everything on a carpeted floor. We didn't
Hmm.
even have a spring floor. And if we were allowed to be on their spring floor, then we had to take our shoes off. So because it was
Yeah.
gymnastics and
Hmm.
they didn't wear shoes on their floors, and so we did. And then we had a 40 by 40, and it was a 42 by 54 floor, but we always competed and practiced on a smaller floor.
Hmm.
So we would go to these big nationals, and that's the first time we would see a regulation floor, and we could wear our shoes.
Was All Stars the
So
first? Was All Stars really the first competitions to be using 9 mats? Because I mean, I remember back in the day, like high school
mhm.
nationals was on 7, college nationals was on 7, then went to 8, and then 5.
And at the beginning, it was on a dead floor. You
Hmm.
just rolled out mats. It wasn't a
Hmm.
spring floor.
Hmm.
But then you could only do fulls. And then when they started adding more difficulty in tumbling, doubles, and other things, they started going to a spring floor just because, your joints, everything's just so much easier if you use a spring floor.
When
So, yeah,
yeah,
it started with 7 mats, and then went to 9 mats and dead floor to a spring floor. Yeah, it's evolved.
so when you went to the Mishawaka location, you're growing. I mean, I remember the Mishawaka location was huge for a while there. Kind of talk when did you see kind of, man, this All Star thing I think is going to blow up. I think this is something that I'm going to make a definitely a full time living, and this is something that I think could really take off. What was that moment for you when you kind of realized this All Star thing is going to blow up?
Steve, I never really, I wish I could say that I was so in tune and that I knew that,
Hmm.
that it would, but it kind of just evolved. I never really saw it. If anything, when I first owned a gym, I made nothing.
Hmm.
I didn't get paid. I made nothing. I just did it because I loved coaching and I loved teenage girls being able to come together, especially I had daughters in it, and they had their friendships. And when high school got hard and you couldn't handle all the backstabbing that goes on, you could come to All Star, and you could come to the gym, and you had a place that you felt safe and friendships that were really meant something. And a lot of those kids went on, and that's who their college roommates were the
Hmm.
kids that they were in All Star with, not their high school friends.
Hmm.
Because it really did become, you traveled together. It was really a family atmosphere. And I remember, and now I'm in partners with all the kids that were cheerleaders of mine. Nicole, who
Hmm.
is an assistant coach at Purdue, she cheered for me. Rachel, my daughter, cheered for me. Kristen cheered for me in the All Star world. So did Amy Yoder. It was Amy Yoder back. Well, it was Amy Tyler back then.
Hmm.
And now it's Amy Yoder. She's a partner of mine. So really, that's where, I just loved the camaraderie. I loved, so I made nothing. And I wished I would have had the foresight to say, oh, this could grow into something huge. When I realized it could be is not until I started the gym in Mishawaka, built the gym. It was an athletic center, which is
Hmm.
way more square footage for the athletic center. And that's where we could. But I realized an important thing: you can only grow as big as your demographics are. You can't get to a 500-person gym in Mishawaka. It's not a big enough metropolis area. So then to do that, that's why I have now gyms in Indianapolis, and I have a gym in near Chicago. And because to really grow and get those numbers, no matter how good you are, no matter what you do, you're still going to be limited in numbers. They say only 7% of the population goes to a workout facility. It actually works out in a gym. Well, I'd say less than 0.5% actually in your demographic area cheers in a cheer gym.
Hmm.
Probably lower than that. So you just don't have that much of a basis, to get to have those high numbers. So I never really saw that, I guess, as a full-time career. It was kind of my hobby
Hmm.
that I did until I got bigger. Now I really preach to small gyms. Run it as a business from the day you open. Even if you only have 70 kids in your gym, you can be profitable as long as you run it as a business and you don't just give people, no one would expect to go into Walmart and get a grocery bag of things for free,
Hmm.
a cart full of things for free. So we can't let them walk into our business and expect to go for free. And
Hmm.
that's what a lot of small gyms have a problem is that they get those talented kids, and then those talented kids say, well, I don't want to pay. Well, then you can't be here. And it's better to let those kids go and keep the kids, the core group of kids that appreciate you, appreciate what you're doing, in the families. And, I was lucky. I had really good kids that I still keep in contact with, a lot of them. And just, they really, really cared about cheering together and cared about me, and I cared about them. And it really started as a family. And even though I've grown now to 5 locations, that hasn't changed.
Hmm.
Whether they're on my team, whether they're on Lady Lightning or Golden Girls, the two teams I coach, or whether they're on any team, I'm always looking around the gym, and I'm always, that care for kids has not stopped. It really is. And sometimes, Steve, looking back, you can get so caught up in winning that you kind of lose yourself. And there was a time where I really felt like I went through a stage where I was actually mean, because all I cared about was, we started getting a reputation. I wanted to win, win, win. And I honestly can say that there have been a few incidents that kind of jarred me and brought me back to, why am I doing this?
Hmm.
If it's to beat kids up just because I want to win, why am I doing this? And I really feel like we've come full circle, and that we've gotten back to our priorities, that it's about the kids. And the times that I win worlds, Steve, that next year, I don't grow because I've won worlds.
Hmm.
I grow because those kids loved being there, loved cheering together, and want to come back. So you kind of have to remember that as a coach. Don't get into, it's all about winning. All of us want to win, but
Hmm.
you gotta, if you don't care about kids, get out of the business. You know.
We are here with Darlene Fanning, founder, owner, coach of Ice All Stars. I completely agree with you. I remember briefly talking to you a little bit. I remember we just kind of had a little bit of a coach's talk when you've always been so welcoming to me to come out to your guys' locations for recruiting and stuff. And
Mhm.
I remember you talking about that in terms of you kind of hit a funk there as a coach. You kind of felt like you weren't connecting with your kids. I respected you so much in regards like your mindset as a businesswoman. But that's kind of what I want to talk about is being a businesswoman in terms of like really growing a business as a female. I think we can all call a spade here. It is harder as a female to grow and
It
really own
is.
your own business. I mean, kind of talk about the challenges you had that you kind of foresaw as you're seeing this thing, Ice, started as a small little rinky-dink gym growing into what is now a franchise gym, and kind of talk about the
Right.
challenges you felt like you've had to overcome.
It is true that it is different for a woman. I have a partner now in Naperville, Brian, and I said to him the other day on the phone, Brian, you don't understand because you're not a woman. And that's why it's so hard for all of us to understand the prejudices that different people face, because if you don't face them firsthand, you don't know what that feels like. And we can empathize, but really when you're faced with any kind of a prejudice, and you go through that, you realize, but as a woman, you are, sometimes men in power, not all, but some men in power talk to you differently, treat you differently, don't take you as serious. And so part of, for a long time, I had this reputation as being this really, bitch, because because I was so cold. I was so, you know, so firm, and but I had to do that to be taken seriously. I had to come off as, you're not going to push me around.
Mhm.
You're not going to do that. You're not going to say. So that affected too my personality and how to evolve and grow. All of your life experiences. Now I say to everybody, everything happens for a reason. And I really do believe that. That's really become my motto
Mhm.
in the last 5 years. If you look at everything, even the bad things that happen to you, if you can look at that as, okay, this is a growing experience. This is going to make me better on the other side. And if you don't get into this feeling sorry, because I could have said, you know what, there's just so much, men just are terrible. And I could have been really bitter, and it would have stopped my growth. you know, but because I always look at things as, okay, so now that happened, but what can I make good out of that? You know, and that's what we just really have to learn.
We are here with Darlene Fanning, founder, owner of Ice All Stars. We'll be doing a Q&A here in about
Okay.
20-25 minutes. So anybody watching right now, if you have a question, tap on the question mark at the bottom of the screen and type us some questions, and Darlene will be happy to answer them later. So again, a Q&A later here with Darlene. So make sure you send us some questions via the question mark at the bottom. So you're growing the gyms in Indiana, because then I believe after Mishawaka you had the Fort Wayne location, correct?
Right.
So you have two locations, and you're starting to see things grow. And then, as you alluded to earlier, had the opportunity to purchase. I believe they were called Ice also, if I'm not mistaken, Illinois Cheerlead. Is that
Right.
correct?
They
Yep.
were ice, yep, ice athletics.
And so you have the opportunity to purchase them. And I remember that happened. Was that around
2011.
Yeah, I'm about to say, when I remember starting at
Yep.
Purdue, and I remember that was all happening.
Yep.
Kind of talk about the transition of all of a sudden, now you have three locations. You have a location at a totally different area, a different state, but then also you need to, I mean, really, you came in and saved the gym. You know, like, kind of talk about what was the challenges that you had to overcome in terms of like taking over a completely different gym. Like, obviously the culture, your culture is not there. It's completely different.
Right.
And talk about what did you have to do to come in and really make that your ice?
Well, once I said yes, that was in the middle of the season. It was in January of 2011 that I came in, and I had a large co-ed in the gym. There were two world's teams, and one of them was a large co-ed. And I remember after the first full practice, I was coaching the large co-ed and a junior team. And after the first practice, I remember driving home, which was quite a drive. I have 2.5 hours to that location, 2.5 hours home. And I remember thinking on the way home, what the heck am I doing? What did I say yes to? Because I said yes, I ran a parent meeting. There were about 500 people in attendance. I ran a
Wow.
parent meeting, told them what the plans for the gym was, did all of that. And on the way home, I was thinking, what am I thinking? What have I taken on? Am I ready to do that? Am I ready to give this much time and energy to the gym? But it just, everything, like I said, everything happens for a reason. And so when it happened and I took it over, if I would have looked ahead, you know, and looked at, okay, now you're going to be driving 2.5 hours there, 2.5 hours home, 4 and 5 times a week. Are you ready to be in the car 20 to 25 hours a week? If I would have looked at all of that and realistically thought it all through, I probably wouldn't have done it. But you know, the opportunity came, and I really, again, it's the kids. You know, I had meetings with all the kids in that area, and all the different teams, and them saying, we need somebody, we need stability, we want to stay here, we don't want to go somewhere else. And listening to all of that, I just was like, okay, I didn't see it as an option. I saw that I had to do. Sometimes I look back and think, what did my own children, my family sacrifice? But you know what? My kids are great. They never ever say anything about, mom, you know, we sacrificed, you weren't here all the time, you didn't get to go to all of our volleyball games or our, you know, or our school play or whatever. They've just been nothing but supportive. And now most of my children are involved in my business. And, you know, thank goodness they were able to go with the flow too and let it happen. You know, I kept telling my kids when they were younger, I have to grow. In order for me to do less in this business, I have to grow bigger. And they kept saying, "What? How does that make sense? You're going to grow bigger so that you can get out of it." But it is true. As you grow bigger and then you have the money, you can hire people to do. I used to do everything. I used to do the accounts and the, you know, the newsletters. And, you know, back then we wrote a newsletter and we printed it off. You didn't have email. And, you know, so I started with a lot of, you know, we didn't have social media. So when I first started, I didn't get to go on the internet and see what a team in Florida looked like or see what a team in Dallas looked like. So then I got to the competition, and then we had to see if what we did matched up with them. And, you know, sometimes I'd lay awake at night and I'd think, I'm spending all of these people's money to go to a competition far away, to go to Florida or to Dallas or wherever. And that really weighed heavy on me. I'm spending their money, and I took that very seriously, that I needed to make sure that those kids were ready and that they looked good. And, we always held our own nationally. Before I ever could see what any team looked like, we always held our own, and we still do.
When now, I mean, we've come to the era of what people are calling the mega gyms. Gyms going all over the country, franchising their names, things like that. Because I mean, ultimately, I mean, we can call again, as I like to say, a spade here. I mean, people want to cheer for an Ice. You know what I mean? They want to cheer for the name. They want to wear that uniform and things like that. Kind of talk about the evolution of that. And kind of talk about the business model of, having multiple locations and kind of really these gyms that are just kind of fighting for these different types of territories.
Well, ICE's philosophy as far as growing has always been, if we can come in and take over an existing gym and they want us there and they want to be bought out by us, and we can take over an existing gym with a base of kids, then I feel like we're needed in a community. To come in and start up with no one, let's just be honest. What you're doing is you're getting a building, but then you're expecting to take kids from everybody else's program. And so that's never been my business model. My business model has always been, if I can go in, and like when we came into Indy, we bought out Speed. When we came into Naperville, we took over ICC. With Michigan, we took over an existing gym. With Barrington, we went in with another gym and took over an existing gym. So it's never been we've come in, plopped a place down and just said, okay, come, we want you to come. So that is our philosophy. If somebody else could have a different philosophy, I'm not knocking them for it. I'm just saying that ICE's philosophy is that. And then, it happened that I said from the beginning, there are 5 partners when we started. Started with 4, and then we added Shannon. And I said, there are 5 partners. I really would like to have 5 gyms, is what we said. Then that gives us all. I've since then picked up Brian, another partner. But I still think that we're not looking to expand anymore. We're at 5. We're comfortable with that. It's kind of all in the Midwest where we're comfortable. I'm in another group called the Alliance, the Cheer Alliance. And I feel very strongly that I'm not going to go into anybody else's area, that they are there. And the majority of the Alliance feels the same way. We kind of have an unspoken agreement. But also small gyms, I don't really want to come in and just start going into everybody's territory. The small gyms are just as important in this industry as any of the mega gyms. And if we keep growing and keep franchising, where is that going to leave? I don't know. The industry's changing so much. I wish I had a crystal ball. I wish I knew what effects we're having by, us mega gyms branching out and starting so many locations. So, that's my business model, but I don't knock anybody else for another business model. And I just know that I like to be asked into an area. And so at this point, we're kind of maxed out, but I'm not saying that we won't open another location. But at this point, we have no plans to.
Again, we're here with Darlene Fanning, ICE All-Stars. If you have any questions for Darlene, in about 15 minutes, we're going to do a Q&A with her. So just tap on the question mark at the bottom and type in any questions you have for Darlene. So you have these gyms, but obviously before you took over the Illinois location, I mean, ICE is already starting to go to Worlds. You're going to Worlds. Right. Kind of talk about the early years of Worlds. And how that's evolved. I'm sure that could probably be its own separate episode. But kind of talk about the early days of Worlds and kind of the evolution of that whole entire competition.
Well, we did not go to the very first Worlds, so we missed one, but we went from then on. So the second Worlds on, we have been at. I remember that first year that we went to Worlds, I watched some of the international teams, and I remember watching a team from Japan
Mm-hmm.
that had some strings, and they didn't do any stunting, any jumping. They did some leaps, and they had this wand with strings on it, and they
Mm-hmm.
put them all over. And I remember thinking how ahead the U.S. was
Mm-hmm.
of all the international teams.
Mm-hmm.
There was just such a big gap. And now you look at it, and I
Mm-hmm.
mean, some of the stuff the international teams are doing, I mean, they have absolutely held their own now and are at the same level, or even sometimes, some of the things I see, crazy things
Mm-hmm.
that they're able to do have absolutely caught up with the US.
Mm-hmm.
And so from where it started to where it is now, Worlds has been, has grown immensely.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's great. I mean, I say, you take Disney and you go to Summit and you go to Worlds a week later, and the differences with Summit and Worlds, with Worlds, there's, it's just a feeling. It really is the best of the best. And the Summit is is what has been the best of all the other levels. And so and that's been a great competition. But with Worlds, there's just a different feeling. And, I think it's a great opportunity. At the beginning, you and I talked about this non-tumbling division.
Mm-hmm.
And at the beginning, I was like, why are they doing that? And I think it's crazy. But you know what? It's included more kids. And there are some kids with, that they have a mental block, or they work and work and work, and they never have gotten to be higher than a level 2 or level 3. And it's not because of a lack of effort. They've just, it's just been a lot harder for them. So you know what? I think the non-tumbling division, I mean, I've seen it grow. I've seen how
Mm-hmm.
hard those kids work, and I actually, so that was something that I wasn't for at the beginning at all. And now I think it's great.
Mm-hmm.
I keep saying, as soon as they have a non-stunting, non-tumbling, non-jumping division, I am going to clean up just the marking motions. So I'm going to win that division. So,
I wouldn't want to be on that team if I'm being coached by Darlene, because I could just imagine your fingers out of place. What are you doing?
Steve, you're making me sound mean.
No, I've had a
Yeah.
lot of your athletes at Purdue, and I will say, like, one of the things I've really respected about the ICE program, not just you, but I think that's because the culture of all the coaches is so welcoming to college coaches and
Hmm.
really pushing college cheerleading to your kids. I think,
We do.
and this is my opinion, and I know I'm not alone in this opinion. I just think that we're starting to burn these kids out young, early, and they just don't want to cheer in college, and it's
Right.
heartbreaking. Or they're broken by the time they're 18, and they just literally physically can't handle college. But I've had a lot of your athletes, which tells me you're doing something right at ICE, because so many kids are just want to cheer in college. Talk about kind of your philosophy in regards to prepare. I mean, it's evident through this talk already that you care about your kids and you want to prepare your kids. Talk about
Right.
what is it about for you in terms of like preparing your kids for the next level.
Well, and you can ask any of my athletes. I'm not going to talk them into super senioring. I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't do that. I feel like for them to go on and start their life and move on and go to college and get that independence and start finding out who they are as an adult is very important. And if they super senior, that means they're staying home and they're living at home still, and they're still having another year of high school, basically, even if they go on and take some college classes. And I mean, I sometimes I would love to see some kids, you've got those athletes that you just don't want them to graduate and you
Mm-hmm.
don't want them to leave you, but that's not what's best for them.
Mm-hmm.
I think every kid should go on and start college with the rest of their peers at the same age as a freshman and move on and then experience that whole college. It's different. No, you guys don't do the all-star thing and you don't practice just for a competition. You do, but my daughter cheered at Purdue. One
Mm-hmm.
of my daughters cheered at Purdue, And to see her get out there in front of that huge crowd, game day, and all the things that every college does that is special to them, like, Purdue has the train and the way that the athletes come out and the way they cheer them on. That's an experience,
Mm-hmm.
and they get to travel with their team. And there's so many things that's different. And I think sometimes people think that, oh, well, I'm going to be a college cheerleader, the same as an all-star, but it's not. You're definitely cheering for a team,
Mm-hmm.
but I think those are amazing experiences for those kids to have,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that helps keep them grounded. I think when you're in a sport or in cheer at college, I think it gives you a group of friends. It also keeps you out of trouble, and it also keeps you accountable.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody's saying, hey, you've got to be up at this time and you're coming to practice and you've got to take care of your body and you can't, you're not going to just be able to drink nonstop
Mm-hmm.
because, it's a trap that a lot of freshmen in college, they get the freedom, they get away from
Oh yeah.
home and,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and so I just think it's great. I mean, I think college cheerleading is a great thing for every athlete to experience or some kind of college sport. I know
Mm-hmm.
we have kids that go on and play, in volleyball and they do all-star or they go on to track and other
Mm-hmm.
things. And I just think that's great.
Um, you know, I just, yeah, I mean, every athlete I've ever had of yours, I mean, pretty much like everybody says, I don't mind working hard. I got coached by Darlene. I don't mind working hard. Or, I don't care if you are cutthroat, or I don't care if we have to cut her or him because, we got to get the job done, and so you definitely prepare your kids for the next level. One more reminder, we're going to do a Q&A with Darlene here in about 10 minutes. So again, just tap the question mark at the bottom of the screen and send us any questions that you have for Darlene. Before we get into the Q&A, Darlene, I do want to talk about, you mentioned it earlier, you said, man, if I could ever take over that gym in Naperville, I will win worlds. And you were right. Eventually, you take it was Lightning at the time, right? And then it became Lady
Right.
Lightning.
Right. It was a
And
co-ed
yeah, that's right. It
when
was a
I first
co-ed.
took it
Yep.
over. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And eventually, yes, you win worlds, and you did it. You took this Midwest gym, and let's be honest, at the time, the Midwest is not a hotbed of cheerleading. It really isn't.
No.
It's really the coasts and the South that are really the hotbeds at the time. But you
Mm-hmm.
take this, you take this Ice All Stars thing and make it a world championship program. Talk about that first world championship, that first world's experience you had with Lady Lightning, and being able to take home that globe.
Yeah, that's surreal. I mean, your first win is always, and that was a good, really good group of girls. But every year, whether they win or lose, they're a good group of girls. Same thing with Golden Girls, same thing with Thunder. We have at ICE, our world's teams are just good kids. They're usually the top of their class. And so just a fun group to coach, and yeah, for the most part, the parents are really on board and they've gone through the levels and they know the commitment and they stay out of things. And we just really have good families. And that first year winning, I mean, it was surreal. That's something you think about and dream about and, to be a world champion. But when they actually, announced it, it was surreal. I remember when I realized that this team is good and they're good is when we were in the milk house and I was walking in
Mm-hmm.
and I was walking from the backstage up to where you sat down in the VIP section. And I remember looking around the crowd and everybody's watching me walk in and they're saying Lady Lightning and doing. Oh. Okay, we had a
Yeah,
little interruption there.
that's right. Mm-hmm.
It was just surreal with that. And I remember sitting down day two. We were, I was pretty sure we would win as long as we hit.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember coming out and sitting down and my knees were shaking so bad that I was afraid I was going to fall on the ground when I sit down on my knees in the front. And I remember thinking, how do these kids do it?
Mm-hmm.
How do they hold their composure?
Mm-hmm.
And they're so young and they come out there and then they hit day two and it was just amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I feel that way whether, like I said, whether they win or lose, when they get to that point, and I'm proud of them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not always the outcome you want, but that doesn't lessen the work. You work just as hard to lose as you did to win.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the time was put in the gym, the effort was made, you know, and it just, you know, it's too bad not everybody can win, but, you know, there's
Mm-hmm.
got to be a winner if you're going to have a sport.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Is it true that you bought the floor after you won?
yes, I did.
I thought so. I heard that rumor. I like
Yes, we did.
that is such a Darlene thing. She bought the floor that they won
Yeah.
on. I love it.
Yeah. So we did buy the floor,
That's
and that's
great.
still in the Naperville gym. It's been taken apart and put together a bunch of times, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we still own that floor.
So before we get to the Q&A, one last thing I did want to talk about is, you know, the Netflix show that blew up, Cheer, and you were interviewed on it. You talked about Jerry, who was at the ICE location for years.
Right.
Kind of talk about that experience. How was it working with Netflix and the Cheer show? And specifically, obviously, they were talking to you about Jerry and his experience at ICE.
Right. Well, when they came into videotape, which was quite a while before they released the show, and they
Mm-hmm.
came into videotape and they wanted to interview me. And that was an easy choice because, you know, Jerry was a part of our family and he had gone through so much,
Mm-hmm.
you know, as an athlete. So it's just so nice to see Jerry get what he deserves, you know,
Mm-hmm.
to get the publicity and to have some things happen for him. He's just a great kid. Always was, just very level-headed, and you know the things that he went through, it puts it in perspective. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of the kids at Cheer and All Star are very privileged kids that have, you know, their families and money, and you know, and Jerry just didn't have that. And he and his mom, she even went as far as to get him on a program through the state of Illinois
Mm-hmm.
because he was overweight when he was younger,
Mm-hmm.
and so that she was able to get money so that he could continue cheering, because he paid, you know, every single year. Boys
Mm-hmm.
pay a little less, but he paid his dues and paid for competitions, and she made it, you know, work. She knew that's what he wanted to do. And so now to see him grow into a man and, you know, still have that humble heart, and you know he's just a great person. And you know he's made it on a Netflix show, and but we have so many athletes in all
Mm-hmm.
of our gyms like Jerry, you know, that could be featured on a show. Just the heart that they have, and
Mm-hmm.
just the good people they are.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, so that was an experience being on it, and then having it blow up,
Yeah.
and all of that. But yeah,
People ask me, "Have you ever met him?" I said, "Yeah, I've met him actually a lot of times when he was there." And I'm like, "That's not fake. Like he's not
no,
faking it for that show. That was
no,
him
that's how he is.
all the time. Yeah, just a great guy, and I'm glad that his story was able to be told by them. It is time for Q&A. Are you ready, Darlene?
Yes, I am. Let's
Right.
do rapid fire here.
Let's see here. A couple of your athletes have a question. Here we go.
Okay.
What are some of your proudest cheer moments? This is from Rini and Chloe.
Oh, you know what? I'd have to go through every year because there are proud moments from every single team, every single year.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, looking back on it, you know, every single year that a group has gone through, I can say, oh my goodness, this, they overcame this. But I think my proudest moments in general are when an athlete accomplishes something that they didn't think they could,
Mm-hmm.
and they are able to do it, and the look on their face when they get that skill or when they're able to do it. And I'm talking, I don't care if it's a back handspring or if it's standing tuck or if it's a double, you know, it's still that look and that proud, you know, that proud and look on their face, you know, that's what does it for me.
This is a great one. This is from Jamal. What is your process on handling parent concerns? Also, protocol for parents contacting coaches. I think that's a great question. I think that the big thing at the all-star and high school level, as us college coaches joke about, is like, you know, thankfully we don't have to deal with parents usually. You guys definitely do. So kind of talk about, yeah, what you can about your protocol in
Well,
regards
you
to
know, the first
that.
thing that we do is, we look at us, our parents, as our customers. They're the ones that pay the bills. everybody, I hear a lot of times in the cheer community, people say, oh, these crazy parents, oh, that crazy cheer mom. But, they're not crazy. They care about their kid. So they're an advocate for their kid. And sometimes they're the ones that have to stand up for their children. So when we start labeling them, it makes it easy for us not to deal with it. But that's not true. They're not crazy. They're just very concerned parents and they want to take care of their kids. So I feel like that's a great thing. They need to do it in a respectful manner. So usually waiting 24 hours or I'm always open to be a part of that. So are the gym managers to be a part of that conversation with the parent. And we try to have it settle down to be cooler heads because, when it's your child, you can get heated. When you think your child's being treated unfairly, it can make you angry. And so I understand those emotions. I raised 5 children. So we look at it as this is our customer. So a lot of times in our owners meetings, we talk about, communicating more so that our parents know what's going on, being open to talk about it. I always tell my coaches the best way to handle anything is get back with that parent right away. Give them a little time, but never let it go longer than 24 hours. Get back with them and not just a text, a phone call, saying, hey, I understand you're upset about this. Let's talk about it. They're the one paying the bills and we need to treat them respectfully for that. And yes, the kid wants to be there, but we can't make it hell on the parents. We've got to be able to have open lines of communication. So that's what we feel at ICE. And hopefully all the parents feel that way too.
All right. Here we go. This is from, there we go. Hi, Darlene. I think you are such an amazing coach and have so much to offer your athletes. I did see it a little bit. It's cutting off here, but have you ever considered going back into coaching, being the head coach of a non-Worlds team?
I did help a little bit with the J4 team in Indy this year, but I found that it was so hard. For every level, you have to know all of the rules, all of the, every single level, every single division is different. So you have to change your whole mindset. And it's hard to expect as much out of younger ones as you do out of older ones. So what I've found is through the whole experience, it would be better for me to coach coaches and to help them. Going back and coaching one team, that's what I'm trying to get away from is even coaching a Worlds team and just coach the coaches that coach those Worlds teams. And then if I'm not just with one team, then I feel like I'm more accessible to all the teams and all the coaches. And I feel like the kids don't feel and parents don't feel like, oh, well, she only cares about that team, So that's what I'm trying to get to is that I'm no longer going to be coaching just one team. But then on a day, like I said, Brittany coaches our J6 junior team. And I said to her, wouldn't it be nice if I could just come in for one practice? And the same thing with Marissa coaches level 4 and a Worlds team. And it would be nice to be able to go to a practice of hers and help see what I see. Because it always helps to have an extra set of eyes. And same thing in Indy, coaches have said, oh, it would be nice if you could come over. Abby's, I come over sometimes and help her out. Amy does the same thing in the Indy gym. She goes around to different teams. And so does Nicole. It just helps when we all, and I think it would be just nice to go to start going to competitions and not be just warming up one team and with one team for a while and missing some competitions, some teams. It would just be nice to go and cheer on every single team, be in the back room with as many as I can. So that's my goal, is getting there.
All right, got a couple more real quick. Again, from Rini and Chloe. What do you think is the most valuable lesson that you teach your athletes? What is some of your core values? If you could pick one or two things that you hope a kid that is coached by you gets out of, what would that lesson be?
I think it would be, trying to teach the same morals and values that the parents teach. So it's not just a parent where the kids are rolling their eyes and going, Mom, you're so old fashioned and, I don't, but having those same values and morals and supporting the parents in that so that they're hearing it from more than one person. So, and I think more than anything, I just want all of our athletes to be good people, and so you do that by example, not by talking, so that's, I think, the most important thing to me is just helping young kids and young adults values and morals and validating them.
This is a good one, actually, because I agree. This is kind of what ICE has been known for the last few years. What is the process that goes into making your amazing uniforms? I agree. You guys have had some excellent uniforms. There was a very funny meme for a bit there with the Lady Lightning that literally had like 45 million jewels on their uniform, and yeah, I mean, you guys have been really, I feel, I agree with this, for the last few years, you guys have really had some beautiful uniforms, classy, not over the top, looks really nice. Yeah, what is the process for you guys in designing your uniforms?
Well, we usually have a design session, and sometimes that's a 1 day or a 2 day session. And we go through and design every single uniform. We do the same main uniform for all of them, but then the world's teams, we do a different uniform for those world's athletes. With what's going on right now with COVID, a lot of us are talking in the industry about trying to make everything a little less expensive for parents so that everyone can continue to do this sport and be able to afford it. I think that's a great thing to do. I don't think I want to take out all the bling. So I'm looking at the next uniforms, maybe keeping them a little longer, keeping a blinged uniform, but keeping it 3 years instead of two, to make the cost go a little better. But I think, when you put a girl in a uniform that's blinged out and she feels good about it, it makes her perform better on the floor. She loves putting on that uniform. So I don't think we can discount that side of it. And I know we're trying to save money, but I think there are other ways that we can save money too. Maybe cheapen up the practice wear, maybe not go to as many competitions. Maybe, there's other things we can do, but the bling in the uniforms for ICE probably always going to be here, and I'm the one that designs all those uniforms. Sometimes I get help from some of the other owners, but for the majority of the time, you're seeing a uniform that I've personally put together, designed, and then put out on the floor.
Real quick, it's not really a question, just I think one of your alums who wanted to just let you know this. Please plan an ICE reunion ASAP, Darlene. Get it done. All right? Get that reunion done. People would love to come back.
You know what? I think what we're going to do is try to do that again at our showcase and have all the alum come back. But I would love to do this next year, as many on teams that can come back and we can represent it as, okay, this was Lady Lightning 2012. This was, Thunder, such and such. This was Halo. This was Weather Girls, and come back in and be a part of that. And so, yeah, great idea. I think we'll try to put that together.
Before I let you go, we have an hour limit here on Instagram Live before they just kick us off, but we still have about 5 more minutes. I did want to get into the subject of the COVID situation, and obviously it's affecting all the businesses around the world. It's really hitting the U.S. hard, and I know for a fact it's hitting the all-star industry hard.
Right.
It's a scary time right now. Obviously, revenue, cash flow is non-existent. It's very minimal right now. Anything that you care to share that you feel comfortable sharing in regards to ICE's stance on, kind of what you guys are planning during this and things that you're kind of looking at maybe doing for the future?
Yeah, we are doing a lot of online team meetings and then classes. And, we may continue with the online classes. We have a lot of kids in our gym that have the air track. And, it would be nice to do an online class that you can actually do that at home. Maybe you live a little farther from the gym. So it'd be nice to have a tumbling coach that, can coach you through that. Some other things, maybe even a stunting class online, where you're just explaining the grips so that when they get it, they can understand, and you have them put a shoe in their hand and teach that and do the different things. So we're going to explore that a lot more than we have before. Again, like I said, we're going to try to make sure that everything's cost effective this year. So we're going to really look at that hard, what we can do to save the parents money and travel. We're going to look at our competition season during the middle of flu season now. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
we're only going to do one competition in January, one in February, one in March, and then one in April. And then, you know, if you want to do a few more, maybe do it in the fall before it really starts gearing up.
Mm-hmm.
So we are going to definitely look at some ways to save money. I think that most of the gyms, most of the bigger gyms will probably make it through. Hopefully, a lot of the small,
Mm-hmm.
medium-sized gyms. And I think maybe this is going to be a lesson for us all to
Mm-hmm.
put money back so that when this happens, you are ready to be able to pay all of your expenses for 3 months or 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
Because unfortunately, Steve, I don't think this is the only time we're going to see this.
Oh,
You
no,
know,
absolutely not. I agree.
I think that this is going to come back again. So I think everybody's going to have to be really smart as a business person and make sure that you're prepared for it.
Mm-hmm. Real quick, I know I had one more question that popped in. I'm just trying to find it real quick for you before. Yeah, here we go. So in this picture, so I was told you out of this picture, you need to pick your favorite former athlete. I think you know the answer she is looking for.
Okay, Nicole, why are you putting anything in any questions?
Nicole's like, you need to ask her who her favorite former athlete is, and I just started laughing. I was like, of course I'll ask her that. Well, before I let you go, Darlene, I want to thank you again for being here today. Your story was awesome. The evolution of Ice All Stars, I think, is great. Before I let you go, one last thing. What is one piece of advice you received, either that be in coaching or as a business owner? What's one piece of advice that you received that still has an effect on you today?
You know what? I think that I've learned, and I'm sure that it was given to me as advice from people, but one thing I've learned is always be open to everybody. You know, everybody has good ideas. You can learn from everyone. You can learn from athletes, you can learn from parents, you can learn from coaches. So never get to the point where you think you know everything. So if you can continue to grow, you'll continue to stay successful in this business, you know?
Darlene Fanning, Ice All Stars. Thank you again, Darlene, for taking the time. I know again you're busy, but the reason I started this up at this time is because we're all sitting at home
I
right now.
know.
So,
I know. Where are we going?
I know, but thank you again. I appreciate your time today, and I'm sure we will chat again soon, Darlene.
Yep, we will,
Great.
Steve. Thanks a
Thanks.
lot. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Bye.
Darlene Fanning, founder, owner, coach at Ice All Stars. A great lady, very, very tough coach, but it's clear she loves her kids, loves her program. And so I just thank you again, Darlene, for being on the show today. We have our last chat of the week tomorrow, and we are going in a different route again. Today, we hit up the All-Star world. Tomorrow, we're going into the crazy world of mascots. Yes, Ray Sharp, head mascot coach at The Ohio State University. Tomorrow at 5:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 Central. Here we have Ray Sharp, head mascot coach and former Brutus the Buckeye. If you are interested and want to learn about the world of mascots, college mascots, how he got into that crazy world, because believe me, it is crazy. You will want to tune in tomorrow with Ray Sharp from Ohio State University. Again, the overwhelming support of Full Out Chats has been great. Thank you so much, everybody. I do want to just say, if you want to help us out, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Full Out Chats. That's where we're going to be doing our live Coaches Corner. So again, please give us a subscription on YouTube. Also, you can also follow us here on Instagram at Full Out Chats. You guys have been great. You've been just tremendous. Thank you again for the support. I am Steve Solberg. I just want to say, stay healthy, stay safe. Have a great day, everybody.